With maximum drama in prime time, President Trump announced the nomination and praised Brett Kavanaugh as a solid conservative.
Judge Kavanaugh has impeccable credentials, unsurpassed qualifications, and a proven commitment to equal justice under the law.
A judge must be independent and must interpret the law, not make the law. A judge must interpret statutes as written, and a judge must interpret the Constitution as written, informed by history and tradition and precedent.
More than any of the others on the president's short list, Brett Kavanaugh knows his way around Washington. He grew up in nearby Maryland, where his mother was a state court judge, graduated from Yale and Yale Law, and was a Supreme Court law clerk for Justice Anthony Kennedy 25 years ago, at the same time as fellow Kennedy clerk Neil Gorsuch, who was put on the Supreme Court by President Trump last year. Kavanaugh met Kenneth Starr during a Justice Department fellowship and became a key staff member when Starr was the independent counsel investigating the Whitewater and Monica Lewinsky scandals. He helped write the final report that cited 11 possible grounds for impeaching President Clinton. He became a White House counsel and top aide to George W. Bush and met his wife, Ashley, while working in the White House. They have 2 daughters. President Bush nominated Kavanaugh to the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, D.C. At his Senate confirmation hearing, Democrats said he was too partisan.
You could not think of another nomination, given Mr. Kavanaugh's record, more designed to divide us.
After the hearing about that senator, my mom said to me, "I think he really respects you," as only a mom can.
He was confirmed 57-36. He's been a judge for 12 years and says the years with Bush made him a better one. In a 2009 Law Review article, he said that experience convinced him that presidents should not be subjected to lawsuits or criminal investigations while in office, but said Congress should change the law to provide that exemption. Republican leaders in the Senate had told the president that Kavanaugh might be harder to get through confirmation because of his extensive record as a judge in the Bush administration and working for Kenneth Starr. President Trump apparently believes Kavanaugh is worth the trouble. Lester?
Pete Williams tonight in Washington. Thank you. Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.